Writers in Winnipeg have a new chance to hone their craft at the Winnipeg Public Library. A new writer-in-residence will be taking over to facilitate workshops and opportunities for aspiring authors. The author in question, as the new writer-in-residence, is the prolific Ariel Gordon, who will also be releasing a new book of her own in the coming weeks. She joins us in the Classic 107 studios again to tell us about both of these things. Good morning and congratulations.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here.
Oh, it's always so nice to have you in here. So maybe let's start with the writer-in-residence opportunity here for you. Obviously, we mentioned you're quite a prolific contributor to Winnipeg's literary community. What does this mean to you at this point in your career?
Yeah, I mean, I've been hanging around the edges of the writing and publishing community since I was 19.
Yeah.
And everyone was older than me, right? But I sort of saw this space and this group of people and this way of being, and I really wanted to join it. And I saw all the writers in residence that were there every year, and they were always such great writers. And it was definitely a dream of mine to be able to do that someday.
Wow.
And we all have little dreams for our artistic careers.
Yeah.
And they don't always all come true, and that's okay, right? Like, the dreams you make as a young person aren't always the most realistic or feasible or even good for you. But this is one that I'm so glad came true. And it's nice to arrive at that day as a mid-career writer and be able to do this and feel like I might actually do, like, a good job, and that this serves my goals as someone that's invested in community. Like, I want to make our community better, and this job is, I think, a good way to try and do that.
There's so much to break down within all of that, but maybe to go back to those formative years that you were having all the way back when you were a 19-year-old. What do you remember about your experience with the writers in residence at that time and how they maybe shaped your craft?
Yeah, I mean, what was great is that you could take them a chunk of writing, like not an entire book. I'm going to stress that right now. But you could take them a chunk of writing, and they would meet with you, and they could talk to you not only about that writing and what was working and what wasn't working and what maybe could be strengthened, but also about the writing life. Right? Like, hey, have you thought about what you might do with this piece of writing? Had you thought about submitting it to a journal? Had you thought about, do you know what I mean? Like, what do you actually want from your writing?
Right.
So it's advice on the writing itself, the craft of writing, but also the writing life. Because you have to take care of both of those if you're a writer. You have to figure out how to make space and time for your writing. You have to seek out like-minded individuals, be in a writing group, go to events, take workshops. And then you actually have to write, and you have to try and dig yourself out and find all the best pieces of yourself and put them on the page.
It occurs to me that maybe that's one of the biggest challenges, is not merely the writing itself, to say nothing of that challenge, but to actually carve out the time for oneself to be able to focus on the craft, develop it, and then eventually to write something that could be added to a volume of work. So people will be carving out time to visit you as at the Winnipeg Public Libraries. What kinds of programming are you planning to help to shape the writers? And maybe how did your experience when you were learning from writers in residence, how is that shaping the way that you want to structure your tenure?
They have a pretty good structure set up. So I'll be teaching workshops while I'm there. I'm going to be doing a nature writing workshop at the Windsor Park Library. I'm going to be, this is one thing I'm excited about. Cliff Ayland, the late artist Cliff Ayland, did that amazing in the Millennium Library. When you first go in, there's all those little paintings on the wall. And I am going to force people to write poems about Cliff's work, just to sit there for a couple of hours and look at them and then write and then stop and then write again. And I'm super excited about that because when my daughter was small, on the weekends, on Saturdays, we'd go for breakfast at Don Deli, and then we'd go to the Millennium Library for story hour. And I remember once I went to the library and Cliff was sitting, because he added to it, like it was installed, but then he kept on adding to it and changing things. And I remember we came in once, and he was sitting on a chair in front of his wall of art, this massive accomplishment, and he was adding to it. And I was like, all's right with the world. You know, and he was I miss him. I hardly knew him personally, but I miss him so much. And so this is like the tiniest way that I can remember him.
Well, and wonderful to find that inspiration from the Millennium Library itself and the locale in which you'll be
it's a beautiful
offering that
library.
mentorship.
Like, it's full of light, and yeah, I'm excited to go there every day and do my own work.
Wow. Okay. So I want to get into your own work in just a second here. But I mean, since that time when you were 19 years old, you've done a lot of things with your writing. And on a very sort of pragmatic level, you found this this avenue for crafting words in your work in other venues with the Winnipeg Free Press. What are you bringing from that sort of very practical application of a writing skill into a program like this, notwithstanding your work as a writer in so many different genres?
I think it's a good idea to have someone that can talk to a variety of things. I mean, I specifically write creative nonfiction and poetry, and now speculative fiction,
Yes, right.
and journalism. But the roles that I've held in this community include communications, publicity, copy editing, editing, teaching workshops. And so I can talk about all of those parts of things too. So I don't want to make over emerging writers in my own image. I want to meet people where they are and celebrate their work and help them find the best entry points and help them make some initial contacts. And I also want to help people have their first experiences in community be positive ones. Because when I was 19 and just starting out, I had some weird not bad weird, but weird first experiences where people are like, ugh, who are you and what are you doing here? Right? And so I had some great ones too. I mean, I worked at Prairie Fire magazine as a student. I worked for Zygote magazine when it still existed. Like I did all these, I volunteered for the National Writers Guild. I did all these things, but I also had some like weird experiences. And I want people to have positive experiences when they come into community, because we need to grow our community and we need to make it as diverse and as healthy as possible.
So you, in addition to growing that sort of writers community, will also be growing your own works while you're at while you're the writer in residence doing your own writing. What kind of things do you think that this program will jog creatively in you?
Well, I've got two big deadlines that I'm bringing with me. One is the next the manuscript of my next creative nonfiction book. It's called Stumped, Morning in the Urban Forest. My previous two were sort of about trees and mushrooms and connecting to nature. And this one is about losing my 112-year-old boulevard elm to Dutch elm disease. Yeah. So a fungal disease killed my tree, which I called my beloved. It sounds odd, but it's still so odd to walk by my house and have not have this enormous tree that was curled, bent over my house and felt like it really protected my house. And we're having with climate change and the urban forest, we need the urban forest to help mitigate the effects of climate change. Never mind the beauty of living in a city and being surrounded by trees and the improvements to mental health and to wellness. But so I'm writing about a little bit about eco-anxiety and the loss of trees and urban nature and what it means to live in cities. And what was strange about all of that was that it was the first time I felt what they call eco-anxiety. And I didn't know what to do with it. Because I live in Wolseley and I can walk out of my house and feel connected to the world. And that helps me so much. And to feel unsettled or unmoored was something that I'm still trying to figure out how to write about.
Right. Well, that in and of itself is doing something about that feeling of eco-anxiety. And I'm sure listeners across Winnipeg can certainly relate to losing an elm tree on their boulevard. It's been happening now for a number of years across Winnipeg. So in the midst of all of that eco-anxiety and all these deadlines, you've also got a new book that you're going to be promoting at McNally Robinson and officially getting its release, and kind of something that takes us away from the world a little bit, away from that eco-anxiety, with what you called before speculative fiction.
Yes.
Maybe you can tell us a bit about this new book, and even that description of its genre is kind of interesting.
Yeah, and it's a hybrid novel. It's an epistolary novel, which means a novel written through letters. And it's like half a graphic novel and half a regular novel. And I collaborated on it with GMB Kamichuk, who is a great graphic novelist and writer in his own right. And we've known each other for a million years. If you ever go to the Comic Cons and the comic festivals in Winnipeg, he's always there with an enormous booth. And 20 years ago, I knew him and I did some work with him on his first press, some copy editing, and I've always hung out in that community. I'm not sure why. But I love it and it's great. And anyways, I would be the girl at his booth that's scowled. You know, there's young women that dress up in costumes and they take pictures with people and I was the girl that was like, do you want to buy a book of poetry? So you can imagine how that went.
Yes, very much so.
But it was great. And so in 2017, we opened a Google Doc and started writing with no plan. Greg wrote the first letter, and then we just went from there. And then at various points, we had other deadlines, so it petered out a little bit.
Sure.
But we came back to it a couple of times, and then this year, big push to finish it. And writing this, because there's so much art in it. Editing it felt like collage instead of actual editing, and I really enjoyed it, and it was different. And I, as a poet, I have no sense of plot. What is plot? What is it for? I don't understand. And so we do this thing where I'd write for a certain amount of time, and then I'd go to Greg and I'd be like, okay, I don't know what comes next, or I don't know, your character has to come in now.
Yeah.
And then he'd be like, okay, I'm going to do that, but then we need to get to here in the story, because he's got the 3-act structure in his brain, like a tattoo on his brain. I don't have it. I have none of that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I can do that. I can get us there. I can get us there in 6 ways. But I just can't do that sort of, the thing that a novelist has, right? That sense of how a story has to move, right? Like inciting incident, like all of that stuff.
What
is that?
But even within that, though, there's a unique approach to crafting a story that perhaps shows the folks that you'll be mentoring through the Writer in Residence program that there isn't just one way to create a story. You don't have to have that inciting incident. You don't have to create the perfect denouement. You don't have to have all of these elements into a formulaic idea of how to create a story in that way.
And there's all these different ways of doing it now. Like there's all kinds of hybrid works that are coming out. It's sort of more of a thing now that, like works that combine elements of all different kinds of ways of writing, like it's not as tied to one genre. And in this book, for instance, Greg and I each wrote from the point of view of one character, but we each included our special skills. So my character writes poems. So there's poems in his voice, and his character draws. And it's a book that's set in the time of war. It's called Blood Letters. And so there are actually, like, it's battlefields and, armor. And so it's just like, it was so interesting to work on. And in some ways, even though I've never written from the point of view of a man before, even though I don't live in this futuristic world, even though I haven't written fiction since I was 13 when I was writing a fantasy novel, it all felt very natural. In a way that I loved. I mean, it was tons of work.
Right.
Right.
But nothing that you're like forcing or nothing that you're actually.
No, I would never felt panicked. But maybe that's the gift of being a mid-career artist, is you don't feel panic anymore.
Yeah.
You just feel excitement with something new.
You know the process.
And
you know that all.
You're used to writing and then discarding writing, and that's not scary anymore. So if you try something and it doesn't work, oh well. That's the life.
Wow. That almost answers my final question for you here, Ariel, which is how or what do you think, or hope even, let's go with hope. What do you hope that artists take away from working with you as a writer in residence?
I hope they come away with a sense of optimism about their own practice. I hope they feel reinvigorated and have some energy that they can take to it. I hope they get some craft tools that they can use. I hope they deepen their ties to community. Yeah. And I hope the same for me.
Yeah.
Like, I know that when I work with other people, like, there's so much good work out there and so many people making good work, and I look forward to meeting them.
Wow.
Yeah.
We are excited to see what you're able to do yourself and how you will be mentoring those folks who come to check out your work as writer in residence and to learn from your craft, but also your perspective. Ariel Gordon's new book, Blood Letters, will be released on October the 17th at McNally Robinson. We'll have more information about all this at our website, classic107.com, and on the Classic 107 app. Always a treat to have you here in studio, Ariel. And thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.